大家好，我是 Oliver Branch Down. So we're going to be talking about whether you should be exercising with an empty stomach or not. And so this actually goes hand in hand with the idea of fasting and whether you should be exercising during a fast or not. Because some people might actually be quite worried that they might have low blood sugar level, or even worse, that they might be actually breaking down muscle when they work out with an empty stomach. So we'll address these points and more in this video. So the first misconception I want to talk about is this idea that if you're coming into a workout with an empty stomach, that you might have low blood sugar level and that actually might be unhealthy for you, or you might pass out. This is most likely not going to happen for a normal, healthy individual. For most people who don't have low blood sugar problems, then this is not an issue. If you do have this, or the doctor has mentioned this to you before, then that's something you probably want to take up with the doctor's advice. However, for the majority of the population, this won't happen because your body is actually very well equipped to produce a lot of energy and to exercise even though you haven't eaten in a while. And this is the idea of exercising in a fasted state, because your body actually has this ability to change different types of fuel. And so you haven't eaten in a while, then you'll have low glycogen levels, meaning the sugar in your stored body in either your liver or your muscles will be lower. Okay, and as such, your body might not have access to glucose as a fuel. But your body has lots of fat, and that actually is the main source of fuel for any type of exercise that requires a prolonged, sustained energy output. And so what your body does go through is gluconeogenesis. Basically, it means it creates sugar from your fat cells. And so what it does is it goes into your fat cells using an enzyme called lipase. It breaks down the fat cells into triglycerides, which is your blood fat, shuttles it to your liver. It breaks it down into fatty acid chains, as well as a glycerol backbone, which is what the triglyceride is attached to, which is a piece of glucose. That glucose can then be used for anaerobic work, basically high intensity exercise. But then you have these fatty acid chains, these chains of fatty cells that will be cut down one by one, that will be used in your mitochondria, which actually produces a lot of energy, 32 ATP units. And so this is why you have no issues exercising or even doing a longer bouts of exercise, of working out, of any form of physical activity, without any fear of losing energy because of your fat cells. The next point I want to address is the fear of losing muscle or muscle mass when you're exercising in an empty stomach. And again, this isn't a big deal if your workout actually has some form of strength training, which is why I always emphasize the importance of strength training, is that when you stress the muscles with enough load, it actually will learn to get bigger and stronger. And so this is important. If you are eating or exercising in a fasted state, strength training, then you do actually want to eat after your workout, so that you actually do supply enough amino acids and proteins to rebuild the muscle. If you're exercising in a fasted state and you're doing strength training and you're not eating afterwards, then yes, you will break down muscle protein. So this is why a post-workout meal is important. So the other thing that you want to keep in mind is if you're doing a lot of endurance type of training, then you definitely want to be a little bit more careful, because you will be breaking down more muscle protein by doing endurance type of exercise. So make sure that post-exercise meal is really high in protein to recover. Okay, the last point that you want to know is that if you're exercising in a fasted state, anaerobic performance will be a little bit worse, okay, which means anything that's high intensity related. Like if you're lifting weights, your performance will go down. And that's because you don't have as much readily available energy in the muscles to be used. To break down fat cells to use as energy is a slow process. And so if you're doing endurance type exercise, it's probably not a big deal. So if you're concerned that if you're trying to build muscle, but your performance will be weakened because you have less energy, well, in fact, the effort level is actually more important if you're trying to build muscle or maintain muscle mass, is your level of exertion. So if you're pushing really, really hard, but in fact you're not lifting as much as you used to because you're not eating before your workout, that level of exertion, that high intensity, will still be the main factor for growing muscles. Now, it is true that if you do have something to eat before the workout and that you can lift heavier, it will be better for building muscle, meaning you will make more gains. But if your goal is to lose fat, then that's actually better, is to exercise in a fasted state. You won't be losing muscle, you won't be making as much gains, but you'll be burning much more fat. So just in the end, you need to understand is the goal of what you're trying to achieve. If you're competing in a sport, then you probably don't want to exercise on an empty stomach. But if your goal is to lose fat, then that is probably best to exercise in an empty stomach. So that's it, guys. Just keep in mind that if you are exercising on an empty stomach, that you will be burning more fat, and this actually is a good thing because it makes your body more metabolically flexible, meaning it's used to using both forms of fuel, glucose and fat. Okay, so overall, I hope that was useful for you guys. As always, please leave any questions or comments below, and